Greetings, Augies everywhere. If you're a subscriber, you're an Augie. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG. My suffix is the channel trademark, hence the OG in Augie. If you're not yet an Augie, just subscribe and join 35,000 other Augies. Today's video marks a departure. We'll continue this series under the overall channel name, Ham Radio Answers, and the Ask Dave series will peel off. No, I'm not changing anything, but I am getting help from BYU film student Trevor Oman to answer the huge backlog of Ask Dave questions and comments, and you met him already in video 130. So, this is Ham Radio Answers 131, and the subject is the oft-promised Retevis Ailunce HD1 handheld radio. Retevis is the manufacturer, but has created a new brand name for its new foray into amateur radio, Ailunce, A-I-L-U-N-C-E. I'm wondering if they really meant alliance and something happened with the plastic pressing machine. Now they have an announcement that's shown on their website that Ailunce is going to be their brand name for amateur radio equipment. It is what it is, and Ailunce is it. Retevis is a big company in China, mostly supplying the commercial, health and safety, and military markets with DMR and other gear. In spite of their recent appearance in the worldwide amateur radio market, they are experienced and stable. While I won't compare them directly with Motorola, they supply a similar market in China. Their first foray into the worldwide amateur radio market is a two-band FM DMR handheld. Reflecting their established market position, this is not a cheap knockoff radio and is priced accordingly. It goes out the door currently for US $200, about half of what you might pay for a comparably equipped Japanese radio, and certainly way less than what you might pay for a similar Motorola radio. This price is nearly a factor of 10 higher than the cheapest of the cheap, inexpensive little Baofeng radios, but you're getting what you pay for. Retevis is using what is becoming the standard business model for more recent Chinese radios, which is to sell either direct or via Amazon and skipping the American middleman. I'd recommend Amazon for quicker delivery, otherwise it comes from China and takes about 2 weeks. Plus, if you use the link shown on this page, also available in the white YouTube link, you get the radio at the advertised price, and a small finder's fee comes back to Ham Radio Answers. Now, I mentioned in an earlier video that the Chinese amateur radio market is maturing. Most of it is for export, since there is not a large Chinese domestic amateur radio market yet. It would seem to be a country ready for ham radio. Lots of well-trained youth who love gadgets. Time will tell. Perhaps China will pick up on the old Soviet model of radio as a sport and allow, indeed encourage, its citizens to contact hams outside of China. In the United States, it has long been an established purpose of amateur radio to improve international relations. So, let's look at this radio. Right off the bat, you know you've got hold of something. Here it is next to the still popular little FM-only Baofeng UV5R. The price is different too, at $200 for this. The battery is the largest I've seen on a handheld at 3.2 amp hours at 7.2 volts. The 7.2 volts is standard for Chinese radios. That's nearly 24 watt hours, and it does seem to last quite a while in normal use. This is a lithium-ion battery and must be used with the supplied charger. For maximum battery life, be sure to charge the battery before use. The battery snaps on easily, but I do have a concern regarding how easily it can come off. I'll simulate here what can happen in a jacket pocket. At this key hitting at the bottom at the wrong angle can pop the battery off. This is not normally an issue, but be aware. The radio is designed particularly for the amateur market by noting that you can program nearly everything from the front panel. This is very helpful, particularly for those who need to make changes on the fly. However, given that this radio has 3,000 channels, you will likely want to do your programming via the computer. Retevis has still maintained the cable architecture that incorporates a chip to convert the USB port into an RS-232 to the radio. This is obsolete and requires that you go into the Windows Device Manager to find out which COM port has been assigned before you can go into the programming software to download and upload the code plug. Fortunately, the cable works for me on Windows 10. I plugged it into a USB 3.0 port, and the prolific chip was not an issue. I would very much like to see Retevis go to the cable architecture used by Radioddity on its GD77, which uses a true USB cable, and you don't have to know anything about COM ports. Wouldn't that make things much easier? I'll discuss the programming side in depth in another video. Note that the programming cable comes with the radio, and the software can be downloaded from the Retevis site for free. I will mention only one thing about the software. Choose language from the menu and set it to English. Otherwise, all you see on your computer screen are question marks. Let's talk more about the HD1 screen. It's in beautiful color and has readable serif fonts that can be read even when they're tiny. You can set the time via the software. You can set whether you want to show the channel number, the frequency, or the channel name. And yes, there is a VFO on this thing too. You can set the time the backlight stays on, but I must point something out. Note that when the backlight is off, the screen is just plain blank. Totally, even outside in the sun. I think this is something that Retevis should look at. Here's a workaround. Okay.
Channel mode 5.
Turn the channel knob one notch. That relights the backlight. The channel has not changed until you turn the channel knob some more. Oop, looks like we've got some activity here from Luciano in Miami. As noted, this is both an FM and a DMR radio, in other words, analog and digital, and can be used on two bands, which are 2 meters and 70 centimeters. It also has a built-in broadcast radio. It will receive out of band, so you can get things like the FAA weather broadcasts. Note, however, that it will happily transmit out of band. Not a good thing. It's easy to make a mistake and transmit on a public service channel. This is not good. Be careful. Make sure all channels are either filled with good information or zeroed out. We'll discuss the DMR aspects in another video. You must, of course, define talk groups and things like that. Setting up a code plug, which is the file that results when a radio is programmed for use, is a rather tedious affair, sometimes best solved by simply using your buddy's code plug. I do want to note one cool DMR feature here. DMR radios often have address books that have enough information that they can act like a caller ID, but usually with more info such as name, call sign, location, and so on, as you see here. On many radios, such as the popular Radioddity GD77, you need to filter the overall list because it can't all fit into the radio. But the HD1 can store 100,000 DMR addresses, and there are only 92,000 in the whole world at the moment. So that means if you have this tuned to your hotspot and are getting signals from Kiev, the front panel will tell you about the caller. This is a very cool feature, but note that it won't be long before the number of addresses exceeds 100,000. Perhaps the HD1A will hold 1 million. This is a feature-rich radio at a reasonable price. It is a dual-band FM DMR radio, plus also receives the FM broadcast band fairly competently. There's no Baofeng-like flashlight, too bad. It has different power levels, though the user manual is inconsistent on what they are. In a future video on FM performance, I'll test the power out. Given how popular hotspots have become, a very low power output on the order of milliwatts would be nice for hotspot work where the receiver's in the same room as you. The 3,000 channels with voice announcements is a big plus, as is the 100,000 entry address book. And note, you can download the address book entries from the internet for free. Sounds like another video coming on. It has a GPS whose functions I haven't yet figured out. That will take more experimentation. A couple last items. To start scan, press star scan 1 second. Dual standby, meaning 2 bands or 1, your choice, can be reached using a quick press of # lock. In my mind, this is an issue, as this oft-used function should either have its own button or should most certainly be labeled as to its proper function. To switch between the A and B bands or upper and lower bands, press scan. Again, this should be labeled. It would be better to label them with the short press function like A/B or single/dual rather than the long press function like lock or scan. I have heard this complaint about Chinese radios often from American hams. They can't find much used functions such as switching between bands. I think the Chinese are getting there, and perhaps the HD1A will have these features. Do I recommend this radio? Yes, I do, with shortcomings as noted. You can work around all of the shortcomings and you'll have an outstanding radio. DMR is a growing part of ham radio, and you as a technician licensee can use that, and I'll have more DMR videos coming up soon. Use this URL to buy it, or click on the white pop-up on the screen to go to the Amazon links on my website. That way I get a bit of a finder's fee to support the channel. I will have more videos on this remarkable radio, and will soon start a dedicated web page at dcasler.com/HD1 to gather info about this paradigm-changing radio. In channel news, I will be presenting a separate series to answer questions in the literal sense. It will be on the same YouTube channel, so you're already subscribed and will get notification. And one such video has already been issued, number 130. As you watch this video, check to see that the bell has these little bars around it. They mean that you will get a specific email notification every time I post or start a live feed. And with regard to video 129, I want to express my sincere and everlasting gratitude to all Augies everywhere. You are the best. To all listening, 73. Next week, we'll take a look at DMR hotspots. I have one from Estonia that I've already grown to love.